Hello everyone, and welcome to the Friday Walkthrough. I'm Cole Carmody alongside of Monte Spiller. It is week 3 of college football.
Yeah, Cats are 2-0. Honestly, I would be lying if I say I didn't expect them to be 2-0, because I did. Nothing against South Dakota. That's a win that we had to have. Missouri, was I worried? I wasn't really worried. I felt like the Cats would win the game. I didn't think they would win the way they did, but I would take it.
There's always that little bit of anxiety every time game day gets closer. But game day is approaching for K-State in week 3 as they take on Tulane, and we're going to talk about it here on the Friday Walkthrough. Make sure you're subscribing to our YouTube channel at Go PowerCat, and make sure you're subscribing to the website at GoPowerCat.com. We're sponsored by the Part-Time Beverage Company. The first half is sponsored by Club Special. The second half will be sponsored by the Cape Cod Drink. So let's get into that Missouri game. We just mentioned it. That was interesting. I felt like there was, obviously the rain played a major factor, and we're going to talk about that, but just initial impressions of the game.
Prior to the game, I was down on the sideline kind of watching the guys warm up. I'm familiar with the K-State guys, so you know what to expect. And the Missouri players came out of the locker room, and there's some good-looking kids there, man. Any D1, FBS, or FCS for that matter, most of the athletes are going to be physical specimens, and they had some good-looking kids. And there was a little bit of concern because they looked good warming up, but after the game got started, K-State put that any doubt in my head away right away. So, yeah.
They had some athletes.
They did.
I was a little surprised by it too. I think, I'm down there on the field before the game as well, and usually you see the opposing teams like South Dakota, you're like, okay, our K-State's guys are a little bit more athletic than those guys.
Yep.
And then you see Missouri, and you're like, okay,
man, yeah.
There's some dudes. They were long, they were athletic. Yeah. But I really didn't feel like it translated to the field at all. And, after that first drive where they drove down and kicked a field goal, I'm thinking, okay, this might be a good game. Yeah. But it was just a blowout after that.
It was. The first drive kind of surprised me. When I say Missouri ran their quarterback a lot, I'm not sure if it was design run or just because nothing was open downfield, but they put him out there, and our guys got some hits on him earlier. And, he was kind of cocky, arrogant, chirping a little bit, which to be expected is Missouri. But after they got to fourth down and got that initial first down and we stopped them again, they got a field goal. I felt good about it because, they gave us their best shot, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of put out a lot of plays there that first drive, and we showed we can cover it and be ready for it and hold them to 3 points. So that put a lot of confidence in me at that point.
Well, we talked about making the quarterback beat K-State.
Yep.
And that's exactly what they did. They did not think Brady Cook was any good.
Right.
And he ended up throwing 2 interceptions. The backup came in and threw another 2 interceptions. But K-State's game plan on defense was outstanding. The way that they stopped the passing attack, I thought, was brilliant. Luther Burden, the freshman that everybody talked about from Missouri, one catch, 3 yards.
Absolutely. It's funny, and I'm pretty sure he'll be a phenomenal player as he gets older and more mature. But K-State came prepared. They shut him down. They made other guys try to beat him. The running back didn't have a whole lot of success. 4 interceptions after the fact. And you're right. We talked about making a quarterback beat us. I'm not sure if Clanderman listened to the podcast before, but if you did, good job, Coach. Yeah. But anyway, but in all seriousness, K-State had a great game plan. They executed it, and there were several guys who made big plays throughout the game.
I was really impressed with Josh Hayes, the safety, transferred from North Dakota State. Was at Virginia last year, comes to K-State. He was impressive. Yeah. The way he came down and tackled, you have visions of Kobe Savage and Josh Hayes, number 1 and number 2 back there. Those 2 guys together can be dangerous. Josh Hayes looked excellent in his K-State debut.
He did. And, prior to him coming to K-State, he was primarily a corner back in North Dakota State and Virginia. But that just goes to show the knowledge and the expertise and the ability for the coaching staff to say, you know what, this guy was a corner, but our 2 corners we got are pretty good, but this guy has to be on the field. Let's move him inside down as a safety and play the ball deep and shallow. And he proved early he whiffed on 1 play, but after that, he was all over the field making plays. And like you said, his energy couldn't help but remind me of Stubblefield from last year.
We're in the same number as well.
Yeah, man. And I was like, that guy's a player.
He's a guy. And we talked to him on Tuesday at the player media availability. And he was like, I was a little nervous out there for the first play, but after I missed on that tackle, I was like, all right, we're back in playing ball. I thought he had a great game. Another guy I thought played really well, again, Kobe Savage, another one of those safeties. He gets an interception. I mean, again, I go back to it, but like that was the question mark that we were talking about before the season is what would the safeties look like? And we know you got your cornerbacks in Julius Brents and Echo Boydo, but what are the safeties going to do? And I feel like that question mark is kind of going away. Now, granted, they've only played 2 games, but I mean, against a Missouri team that has been pretty prolific through the air, I mean, they answered the bell.
They did, and they all are experienced to a certain extent. They all have played at the D1 level several games, but not together like we talked about before. And you're forgetting Sincere Mason as well.
Yeah, another one.
He got the first pick of the game, if I remember correctly, and he's another safety that we knew what he was capable of, but the fact that all 3 of them playing together, what was going to happen? They communicated well whenever Missouri shifted, and the first drive they traded tight ends, they motioned 3 or 4 times before they snapped the ball, and K-State adjusted perfectly and was in great position. So that right there shows that they can work together as a team.
The communication in the back end is extremely important.
Yeah.
And you could tell they were communicating.
Absolutely.
They're on the same page right now. This defense is really dang good, and I've watched quite a bit of the Big 12, and I think I'm ready to say through the non-conference slate, K-State is a top 3 defensive team in the Big 12. They're that good. They're that athletic. When you have guys on 3 levels that will come down and hit you, I mean, goodness gracious, you got Felix, you got Daniel Green, and we knew about Kobe Savage, and now you get Josh Hayes into that mix. Teams are not going to want to run the ball, or they're not going to want to throw little slant routes across the middle because they know that the receiver might get decapitated.
Absolutely. And quarterbacks, if you're smart, keep everything outside. But on the flip side, you don't have a whole lot of time because the D-line is putting pressure on you. And that's another thing. Our D-line is so good that allows us to continue to rush 3 guys and keep the other guys back without having to bring pressure. But when we do bring pressure, it's quality pressure, and most times the quarterback don't see it coming, and it'll force them into an interception or into a sack or a loss. But the defense as a whole unit is playing really good ball. In most cases, you'll find a weak link here or there, but right now, I know it's 2 games, don't get me wrong, and, South Dakota is South Dakota, and Missouri is Missouri, so you had a good balance. But as a whole unit, they're playing really good ball.
They're fast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They are fast.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if we have to give a grade for Saturday on the defense. I mean, I would give them close to an A.
Yeah.
I mean, they passed the test, and we'll talk about the ending of the game here before we finish the first half. But flipping over to the offensive side of the ball,
Right.
When the rain started, it completely threw a wrench in the game plan.
It did.
I mean, we'll talk about that. That's fine. But I want to focus on that first drive.
Right.
K-State gets into 3rd and long multiple times. Adrian Martinez finds a way to scramble, and then he throws to Malik Knowles for a big first down completion, finds a way to scramble out of the next 3rd down, moves the drive. Long RPO pass to Phillip Brooks sets up a Deuce Vaughn touchdown. He threw 54 yards on the first drive. He threw 53 yards all of last week against South Dakota.
Right.
Are you worried at all about the passing attack?
I'm not. And a lot of times, and it's easy as a fan to get impatient because you want to see the deep balls because we do have guys that can go get it deep. And Martinez knock has been, he's turnover prone and he can't throw the deep balls when there's pressure and whatnot or in certain situations. But I'm not concerned. And why force it if it's not needed?
Exactly. I'm with you.
Exactly. And then when the time comes, I truly believe that Coach Kleinman and Coach Klein will put him in a position to make plays. And you got to remember, Deuce is going to be Deuce. Malik Knowles has played great. Brooks has played great, special teams and receiver. And it's one of those, even Kay Warner, he's playing well. And a lot of times people forget that. And you don't have to have speedsters all over the place to get guys open. You can scheme guys open. And I think K-State will. Keep working the RPO. Guys going to have to respect Martinez's running ability, and when they come down or bring an extra guy in the box, you can go over the top. So when the time comes, I think they'll be ready.
A play that I point to as Exhibit A, why I'm not worried about Adrian, is that 3rd down play to Malik Knowles.
Yes.
I mean, this is a big play. If K-State has to punt, they're giving the ball back to Missouri, and people are kind of go, okay, well, what's going on? He stays in the pocket.
Yep.
They dropped 8.
Yep.
They dropped 8. He stays in the pocket. He goes through his reads on his 3rd read. He finds Malik Knowles, who found a soft spot in the zone, delivers a bullet for a first down. That is why I'm not worried about Adrian Martinez, because he has been there and done that before. And now that he, A, has time to throw the ball, and B, understands, I got playmakers around me. I don't have to do it all. There's got to be a sense that if you're Adrian Martinez, we're going to figure this out.
Oh, yeah, and he knows he has an offensive line that's going to protect him and give him time. And like you say, he went through his progressions, and when he did find Malik open, he threw a bullet in there, and it was only a ball that he was going to catch. and there was no sense of panic. And from my standpoint, there was no sense of panic ever out of Adrian, and that was so comforting as a fan to see him not want to pull the ball and run right away, but he sat there, went through his progressions, found the open guy, and made a big first down.
And then, when the rain starts, the monsoon starts, I mean, you just throw everything out the window. You got 22 back there. Give him the ball. Let him wear down the defense because eventually he's going to bust one loose, and he did in the second half. And when you have a defense that was playing as dominant as K-State, it's okay not to force the issue. You don't want to try and change the momentum. And so I thought K-State did a really good job of managing the game. Adrian Martinez did a good job using his legs as well. So overall, offensively, there's things that you want to see, sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we'll see it against Tulane. We'll talk about that more in the second half, but I'm not mad at the offensive performance. Do I think there's more in the tank? Sure. But you know what they say, if you don't have to go 100 miles an hour, why do it?
Yeah, exactly. And the offense is patient. They did a really good job. And a lot of times, Deuce, his size and his speed, it can be deceiving because if he's not in the open, hitting the edge, but when he's at the middle, he gains 4 yards here, 5 yards there. It'd be first down and 10, all of a sudden, 2nd and 4. 2nd and 5, 3rd, and it's like, okay, that's good yardage, and people don't realize it because he's so small and he's behind the big boys. But then all of a sudden, that 2nd and 4 goes to a 20-yard pass down the field, or a screen pass, or a big run. And the offense was so patient, and they controlled the clock. They dominated the line of scrimmage. Both sides of the ball dominated the line of scrimmage, and it was, to the average fan, it was kind of boring.
They scored 40 points.
Yeah, it was kind of boring.
Yeah.
It was kind of boring. But when you score 40 points, that's a dominating effort. And then when you go back and look at it, you know what? That was good football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a great game overall for K-State. I don't think, again, if you're frustrated with the offense, I guess I understand. I think you're maybe just trying to get mad at something at this point.
Right.
But overall, solid performance. I want to talk about this before we end the first half. As a former player, you've been on the field when you're a starter and you're kicking the crap out of a team. You get to come out. You get to cheer on those other guys. You've also been in the other role where you go onto the field as that young guy and get into the game and try and keep like the shutout like we saw against South Dakota. Well, K-State hadn't given up a touchdown the entire game.
Right.
It was 40-6. The 3rd and 4th team is in for K-State. Mizzou's driving. Well, actually, after a fumble, they had the ball on their own on the 20-yard line, and K-State holds them. 5 seconds left. Eli Drinkwitz calls timeout.
Yep.
What are your thoughts?
Okay, I would tell you, from each standpoint, as a coach, I would not, and I think Coach Kleiman was in the same boat that I would feel. I wouldn't be happy about it. Here's the thing: you're going to lose the game. I get it. You want to be competitive, but there are certain rules about football that certain things you don't do. And I get it. The 2nd and 3rd team guys are in there. If you want to get quality reps for some younger guys, that's fine when there's more time on the clock. But when there's that point, you take a knee or you run the ball and you let the clock run out. So I'm not in agreement with that call. As a player on the field, if I'm a 2nd and 3rd team guy and I'm out there, I'm doing everything possible to obtain that shutout per se outside of the 3 points.
Yep.
I don't want to score a touchdown. And I know the older guys on the that started are thinking the same thing, and vice versa. If it was me and Coach Kleiman has a better temper than I do, temperament about himself, I would have called time on myself, put the starters back in, and said, okay, you want to play this game? This is what we're going to do. But he's Coach Kleiman for a reason.
There was probably a little bit of temptation for that. And if you saw the video after the game, Drinkwitz comes over and shakes his hand. Kleiman shook his hand.
Yep.
He didn't say anything else.
Yep.
You're not required to. He didn't say anything else. And you know what? I have a feeling that there's going to be some extra spiciness that goes on in the recruiting trail because of the ending of that game, assuming Eli Drinkwitz stays at Missouri. At this point, I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't think he's very long for that job, but either way, it was quite the interesting finish. And you know what? If you're K-State, you get out of there with a win in dominating fashion. Now you get to prepare for Tulane. We'll talk about that game coming up in the second half. You're listening to the Friday Walkthrough. Make sure you're subscribing on everywhere you get your podcasts, and make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube channel as well. We'll be right back with more after this short break. Welcome back here to the Friday Walkthrough. I'm Cole Carmody alongside Monte Spiller. We're sponsored by the Part-Time Beverage Company. This segment in particular is sponsored by the Cape Cod. Make sure you're getting in and trying the great products. Starting off the second half, we're going to talk a little bit about K-State and Tulane. Now, Tulane is 2-0, but they played UMass and Alcorn State. So we'll get into that. We'll talk a little bit about them. Then we'll get into the game. But before we start, I got to get your opinion on this. maybe the biggest story of the week in K-State country, if you want to use that term, is the new uniforms. K-State will be wearing the white helmets with the flag Willie, pennant Willie, whatever. I don't even flag Willie.
Sure.
Throwback look. Right. Then they got the numbers on the side of the helmet. They'll be wearing the white pants. You never got to wear alternate uniforms when you played at K-State.
Yeah, that was something that was not an option. Coach Snyder is who he is, and I love the man for what he's done with K-State. But as a player, a former player, and a fan of cool uniforms, if he would have ever offered us opportunity, I would have loved it. But I'm happy for the guys now. It's a cool look. I'm excited for them. I think it motivates the kids, it motivates the fans, it motivates the student section, and it's different. Some people think there's a jinx behind it, and it is what it is. But I'm excited that the K-State equipment team is putting together some cool looks, and honestly, I'm gonna try to find a way to get one of those helmets.
I love the look. I really do.
Yeah.
I think the white helmets are perfect. You have the purple and the white. It's in the fight song,
right?
But it's also part of K-State, right? I mean, when you see purple and you see white, it's like, oh, it's K-State. There's only a few schools that have purple. So to have that unique look, I mean, it generated a lot of publicity on social media. So I think K-State's doing the right thing with this. I'll ask you this. If K-State is able to come out with a win against Tulane, do you think about breaking out the all-whites in Norman the next Saturday?
I would not be opposed to that. That'd be a great opportunity to break them out. 7 o'clock game, great environment. I'm assuming OU will be 3-0. I can't, who knows? They have to play Nebraska still because that could be a trap game. Who knows? But that would be a great setup to have a matchup for the current Big 12. Who knows how long OU will be with the Big 12, but it'll be a great opportunity. Primetime game, people can see K-State. Great recruiting tool because a lot of time, these high school kids now, they want to go to a quality program, but they also ask what kind of uniforms they have, what kind of swag do they have. So I will be all for it. Who knows, but I will be all for it.
I think it's great we actually can talk about this.
Yeah.
There's some intrigue. If you're going to do it, I'm glad they're doing it against Tulane. Nothing against Tulane, but that's maybe a time where you can say, oh, the people that think that it's cursed, that you can't wear alternate uniforms. If you beat Tulane, maybe put that to bed. So anyways, I thought it was cool that they're doing that. Wanted to bring that up. So let's talk about Tulane. Some things about Tulane, there's some local ties here with this team. Okay. Willie Fritz is the coach, his 7th season at Tulane. Before that, he spent some time at Sam Houston State. He was at Georgia Southern. He was also at the University of Central Missouri in Warrensburg, so some local ties. But Chris Kleiman brought it up at his press conference when he was the defensive coordinator at North Dakota State. Willie Fritz was the head coach at Sam Houston State. So lots of history between these coaches.
There you go.
The offensive coordinator is in his first year, Jim Svoboda. He was the head coach at Central Missouri for the past 11 years.
Wow.
So kind of a homecoming of sorts for the offensive coordinator and for the head coach.
Right.
But I want to ask you this. Tulane, obviously it's in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. They won 2 games last year. Mm-hmm. They took Oklahoma to the wire at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. There was some talk this week about, they've had to go back and look at some of the film from last year because, again, as we mentioned, they played Alcorn State and UMass. It's kind of hard to take anything from those 2 games. Collectively, they beat them 94-10.
Right.
So, what are you going to take from that? But last season, Tulane couldn't play any home games because of Hurricane Ida.
Right.
I'm curious, do you think that they return 18 starters? Is there a sense of we can go on the road and it doesn't matter what kind of environment we go into if they've had to do that all last year?
Absolutely. And it doesn't help. Well, for them, it doesn't hurt, but for us, it doesn't help. If you look at last week's college landscape, how many smaller schools, quote unquote, went into big schools and won? Georgia State beat Nebraska. Marshall beat Notre Dame. Appalachian State beat A&M. And I feel like there's a couple of more games that were considered upsets. So, yeah, I think they would. They're probably road warriors, although they didn't have a whole lot of wins last year. But they're used to traveling. They're used to being away from their home stadium, staying in the hotels, away from different locations. But I think it gives them somewhat an advantage for preparation. Not necessarily X's and O's, but just the whole process of coming from New Orleans to Manhattan. So it won't be a big change for them. They've probably played in big venues, great crowds and whatnot. And I'm not sure if it's supposed to rain again this weekend or not, but I think it does give them a little bit of advantage. It helps them out.
I think where there's the disadvantages we talked about, UMass and Alcorn State.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between those schools. No offense to the Minutemen and I believe the Eagles.
They are the Eagles, I believe so. That's right? Steve McNair's alma mater, I believe. Yeah.
Leading passer for Alcorn State in week 2 last week threw for 34 yards. As much as we've talked about Adrian Martinez's struggles, I would bet a lot of money he would throw over 34 yards.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some differences in the competition that Tulane is going to have to turn it up. I mean, I'm not faulting them for scheduling this because Bill Snyder was famous for this. Schedule the teams that you know you can beat so you can get the confidence up and then go win and potentially have an upset.
Right.
But in today's landscape of college football, it sure seems like a tall task to go from playing Alcorn State to immediately playing a school like K-State.
Yeah, it is. And I think K-State is in the advantage with this because you go from playing a quality athletic team like Missouri to going to play a team like Tulane, and where Tulane is playing at Alcorn State, where the guys probably didn't play the whole game, the starters, and get used to that. So K-State's in an advantage, and then Tulane will be the speed of the game, the size of the players they see, the scheme's going to be different. And so, they're going to have to adjust. And the question is, can they adjust before they get too far down?
Well, and schematically, Tulane doesn't do anything, ridiculously outlandish. They run a four-man front. They run the spread offense. K-State's seen it a million times, right? Michael Pratt, the quarterback for Tulane, he's one of those guys who he's going to throw the ball a lot. I think their leading rusher has 86 yards on the season, so they're gonna try and air it out, which I think is a good test for the secondary. Yeah,
it is. And like with us playing a 3-3-5, that plays right into our hands. So if you want to pass the ball, great. We got the guys to cover it. Make them run the ball. Kind of like what we did with Missouri. We're going to take the ball out of your stud's hands and put it in your quarterback hand. Make them beat us. Same thing. You want to throw the ball? We're going to take the ball away from you pass-wise, make you run the ball. See if you can beat us running the ball. We got 3-star linebackers, 2-star linebackers, and 3-star D linemen that can play the ball as well. So, how will they adjust to what we throw at them and vice versa? I think we'll come out on top, but it'd be interesting to see how Tulane approaches the game.
And there's always that question of a trap game. Every week, anytime you go play from a Missouri team and then you see this, you played Tulane, then you got to go to Oklahoma, there's going to be question marks. I think somebody asked Kleiman about it on Tuesday. Are you worried about your team looking forward to Oklahoma? And he said, no, we're not good enough to do that, And I mean, that's the answer every coach is going to have, obviously. But I don't worry about that with this group simply because of the leadership and the culture they built, not only with the coaches, but with the players as well. They're locked in right now. And I think, quite honestly, there's not going to be that trap game. Since, if I'm wrong, I'll be shocked. But I just don't see that happening.
Just being around the program and, you see some things up close and personal that some people won't. You just get that sense of confidence, that sense of responsibility, that sense of maturity and leadership. And it's not just one or two guys. It's several guys that are taking leadership roles and not necessarily vocal, but their actions on the field and off the field. You got guys that are doing great in the classroom, guys that are doing good things in the community, and they're a quality group of kids, collectively. And even the backups, you see the guys supporting the starters, on the sideline. Sometimes you get a star player and some of the other guys are jealous or don't want to be a good teammate. I feel like this team as a whole, they have each other's back, and that's going to play a huge role as the season goes on.
This team is the type of team that is willing to do anything for each other. Yep. That's the kind of culture that Chris Kleiman is building, and it's really cool to see because we, like you mentioned, we do get a chance to kind of be up close and personal, and these guys care about each other. When you got your starting center wearing Adrian Martinez's merchandise, his NIL merchandise in a press conference, that doesn't happen at other places.
No,
I mean,
that's big time.
There's a special bond that these guys have, and I think it's really cool, and I think that helps them in this game because they know we get to play together.
Yeah.
That's where college football is different than the NFL. In the NFL, you get to play 17 games with each other. In college, you get to play 12. That's all that's guaranteed.
That's it, yeah.
That's a full month and a half worth of preparation that you don't get in college as opposed to the NFL. So these guys understand that, and I don't think there's going to be a letdown because I think they know they're still trying to earn something. Mm-hmm. They're not ranked.
Yeah.
I think they should be, quite honestly, but they're not. No. And so they're working because they know that, hey, there's people that still doubt us.
It is. And I'm kind of, part of me is happy. Cause it never fails, I feel like, with K-State. They rank us, and all of a sudden we'll play another ranked team, we lose, and then we're out of the top 25 for the rest of the year. So I'm okay with them not ranking us yet. And it is what it is. A lot of people going into the preseason, I think had us, 6th, I want to say, maybe, if that sounds correct. And that's fine. We know what we had, and I think a lot of people knew what we had as well, but they didn't want to give us credit too soon just because we're K-State. And that's okay. And I think we embrace that underdog role, and that's kind of what we're about. But I truly and honestly believe with the guys and the pieces we have right now, they're going to stay focused, and they're about to do something special this year. And I'm excited about it.
Starts taking care of business on Saturday,
Yes.
and I'm with you. I think this team can be really good. We'll talk more about the Oklahoma game next week, but specifically on this game, in your opinion, what does K-State need to do for you to walk away feeling satisfied?
We have to dominate both sides of the ball, special teams, which we have the first two games, but we have to dominate in more than one way. Punt return game was great. I want to see a kickoff return. Obviously the defense is dominating. They're not kicking off a whole lot, so it's not a lot you can do about that, but that'll come as well. But I just want to see different pieces making plays, tight ends, running backs, fullbacks if they're in. I want to see the offense come collectively together and just have a drive, leaving the other team's defense shaking their head and the crowd like, oh my gosh. In our defensive side of the ball, I want them to continue to get better and then see other guys get playing time a little bit earlier, not because they have to, but because it's good to, and because, like I said, it's a long season and injuries are going to happen. And if you have quality backups in, that's one of those things. And I think Tulane game is the perfect game to get that going because when you get into the Big 12 schedule, so many guys are going to get so much time playing because you can't have a letdown and you're going to need more out of your studs. So, but I want to see K-State dominate every aspect of the game, special teams, offense, and defense. No mental mistakes. Minimize the mental mistakes and play smart, fast football.
Do you think that there's going to be more of an emphasis on throwing the ball this week, assuming the weather's fine? Do you think that Colin Klein, Adrian Martinez, and Chris Kleiman are sitting up there going, all right, we need to show that we can do this? Or do you feel like that their game plan is we're just going to hand 22 the ball, and if we have to throw it, we will, but there's no point in trying to fix it if it's not broken?
I think there will be a little more throwing just because it's good to get that practice in a game situation, deep balls. But on the flip side, they won't give as much as they probably could because you don't want to put a whole lot on film. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma is a great team. Brent Venables is a phenomenal defensive coordinator, now head coach. I'm not sure how much of a role he'll have in that. I'm pretty sure he will. Mm-hmm. But in me knowing Brent like I do, he prepares like no other. And so you want to give him a lot to prepare for, but not too much to prepare for. So it's kind of how much do you give? How much do you practice for? But I think they will pass a little bit more because you kind of have to.
Yeah, you kind of got to get those live reps. Yeah. I feel like it's one thing if you're not worried about the passing offense, which I think you and I are both in agreement we're not. But you want to be able to get that timing because with a new quarterback, there is some of that, right? I mean, you want to be able to have Adrian Martinez know, okay, we got a corner who's playing 7 yards off. It's 3rd and 2. Let's just throw a little hitch route.
Yep.
As opposed to, sure. Obviously, Deuce Vaughn could get the first down, but let's try this. Yeah. Let's make sure that we can do this. Let's cross our T's and dot our I's with the passing game. I think Adrian Martinez is going to throw for over 100 yards. Mm-hmm. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't know if he'll throw for 200 because I don't think he'll be in the game the whole time. I think K-State will run away with this. We'll get to our predictions, obviously, here in a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, this is a game where I feel like in the first half, treat it as a trial run, right? Just because you get up doesn't mean you got to take your foot off the gas. Go for it and open it up. I mean, if they don't, hey, we'll know pretty quickly. If they get up early and decide to hand the ball off to Deuce, we'll know that that's going to be their game plan. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's because they don't trust Adrian. Right. I think it's just because, again, like you mentioned, they don't want to put too much out there for Oklahoma, and they feel that confident in Adrian. I don't think it's they don't feel confident if they don't throw the ball. I think it's they feel extremely confident that they know they can hold it back because when it comes time, he'll be able to execute.
Yeah, and Adrian knows what's in front of him. He's a senior. He knows this is it. His goal is to make it to the next level, which I'm happy for the guy. I hope he does. But he understands, he has to continue to develop as a quarterback in a new system. And if you look at Adrian, since he got on campus, in every interview he's done, the kid shows confidence. But even more so now when I watch interviews now after the first 2 games, there's a more of a relaxed confidence because I think he truly understands where he's at now and he knows what he has around him. And I think the kid's confidence is going to shoot through the roof and he's ready to put on a show. I think the first 2 games he managed the game as needed because that's all he needed to do. But I believe after this game against Tulane moving forward, he's about to say, you know what, I'm ready to roll. Get on my back. I'm gonna carry you. Let's ride.
I'm hoping for the best with Adrian because he is a great kid. I think he's got all the tools.
Yeah.
I mean, we know this. His running ability, man, it's looked really good. So I think they will hopefully try and open it up a little bit more. But again, if they don't, they don't, and we'll have to go from there. Last segment, last part here. We got to get into our pick segment. K-State's only a 14-point favorite. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It feels like Vegas is maybe they know something we don't. I'm not going to give Vegas credit.
Right.
But 14-point favorites. What do you have as the score? Does K-State cover?
Oh, yeah, we cover. I say 52-17.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
52 again. So are you? Let's just put it on record here. Adrian Martinez, big game.
Adrian has a big game. He doesn't play the whole game, but he has a big game.
Big game. All right, I'm gonna go 42-14.
Okay.
I think it's kind of the similar type of game. I do think they'll air it out a little bit more, but again, I think K-State is just majorly locked in right now. Mm-hmm. Depending on how they look, I might be ready to change my prediction and pick K-State to beat Oklahoma. That might be when we film this next week. Maybe it'll be an on-the-spot moment, but nonetheless, I expect big things out of K-State this weekend. Thanks, everybody, so much for listening to the Friday walkthrough. I'm Cole Carmody. That's Monte Spiller. We're sponsored by the Part-Time Beverage Company. Make sure you're hitting subscribe on that YouTube channel. Drop a like. Make sure you go subscribe to GoPowerCat.com. We will talk to you next Friday.